Okay, so let's maybe unpack this. We've all seen or heard about this kind of scenario, right?
Hmm.
The clock hits, say, 4:00 p.m., and Mrs. L, who seemed fine all afternoon, suddenly starts pacing, maybe demanding to see her mother, packing a bag, sometimes even getting accusatory. And this late-day agitation, people often call it sundowning, it just kind of spirals. Everyone ends up exhausted.
Oh, absolutely. It's incredibly draining for the person experiencing it and for the caregivers and for decades, the view was pretty much that this was just random. An unavoidable neurological glitch tied to cognitive decline. Like you were just, fighting the clock itself.
But the sources we're digging into today, they come from behavioral gerontology, and they really rewrite that script completely. They argue Mrs. L wasn't reacting to the time, like 4 p.m. on the dot. She was reacting to something much more tangible.
Exactly. Things like a loss of structure during the day or changes in light. Predictable things, actually. The core idea here, the big shift, is that this agitation, it isn't just chaos, it's data, it's communication.
Right. Applying behavior analysis, ABA, to aging and dementia care. So these behaviors, they aren't random noise. They're signals driven by things happening right then in the environment, the antecedents.
Precisely. And if we can figure out those triggers, those antecedents, we can often prevent the distress from escalating in the first place.
That shift in thinking from, some unsolvable mystery to a communication problem we can decode, that feels really powerful. Let's maybe start there with that basic reframing. How do we shift our perspective?
Well, the first crucial distinction is this. Agitation is not the same as aggression. It's vital. When we label something as aggression, our instinct is control. Maybe sedation, maybe restraint, which honestly often just makes things worse.
Adds more distress.
But if we see it as communication, well, then the person is essentially saying, help me regulate, or something in my environment isn't working for me.
Okay, that changes the whole goal, doesn't it? If
Of
it's communication, my job isn't just to stop the behavior. It's to figure out the message behind it.
Exactly right. Now, cognitive decline is a factor, of course. Dementia makes people much more sensitive to environmental changes. But the sources really emphasize that the agitation itself isn't purely neurological or, guaranteed just because someone has dementia.
So dementia lowers the threshold, but something else pulls the trigger.
That's a great way to put it. When those environmental supports, like a predictable routine or enough light, start to fade away, especially late in the day, confusion grows, maybe a sense of threat increases, and behaviorally, that sets off a chain reaction. That's what leads to that 5:00 p.m. crisis we often see.
Okay. So if the afternoon structure, or lack thereof, is the antecedent, then the goal isn't crisis management at 5 p.m. It's designing the day so those conditions that trigger the distress never really build up. Preemptive design.
That's the heart of the behavioral approach, prevention. Using antecedent manipulation, as we call it, it gives you a roadmap to actually engineer calm, which is so much better, more dignified, and frankly less exhausting than just reacting.
Okay, so if we're going to prevent it, we need to decode that message first. If Mrs. L is pacing, packing her bag, what's the behavior telling us? We need to move past the label, like sundowning,
Yeah.
and really analyze the function of that specific behavior for that person.
Right. You have to ask, what is the person getting from this behavior? Or what are they trying to achieve? Why does it keep happening? Our sources point to three main functions that agitation often serves. Usually it's about seeking something or escaping something.
Okay, let's break those down. What's the first one?
The first, and maybe the most common, is escape. The person is actively trying to get away from something uncomfortable or overwhelming. It might be sensory overload, too much noise, harsh glare from lights, the confusion of too many people or activities they can't follow.
How would that look? Like, what are the signs?
You might see them shielding their eyes, physically pulling away from noise, or that pacing behavior again, trying to escape a room that feels chaotic. Avoidance is a key cue.
Okay, I can see that. As daylight fades, shadows get weird, maybe the overhead lights come on harshly, that could definitely feel like something to escape from. What's the second function then?
The second is often the flip side, sensory need. This is about seeking stimulation. Maybe release after being inactive or, frankly, bored for too long. If someone's been sitting quietly without much meaningful engagement, their system might just be crying out for some kind of input or physical release.
And that could look like.
Restlessness, fiddling with objects constantly, tapping. And again, pacing. That pacing Mrs. L was doing in our example could absolutely be driven by a need for movement.
Right, so the pacing could be, get me out of here, or I need to move.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference. Okay, and the third function.
The third is confusion mixed with fatigue. End-of-day tiredness is a massive factor. It just lowers cognitive tolerance right down. Things they might have handled okay at noon, minor confusion, a small change become overwhelming by 5 p.m. because their reserves are just gone.
So they might lash out or seem really confused simply because they're exhausted and can't process even small shifts anymore, like a family member leaving.
Exactly. That departure or a transition between activities suddenly feels catastrophic because their ability to cope is depleted by fatigue.
Wow, okay, that's incredibly helpful. Knowing if Ms. L's pacing is about escaping glare versus needing stimulation,
Hmm.
well, that completely changes what I do next, doesn't it? Dim the lights or put on some music. Totally different interventions based on the function.
Precisely. Analyzing the function is the critical data point, and it leads us right into the practical steps, the three-step roadmap for engineering that calm we talked about, moving from figuring out why to figuring out what to do.
Okay, let's get into prevention. Step 1, manipulating the antecedent. You mentioned structure. I like that idea. Calm evenings are built in the morning.
They really are. If you suspect that sensory need or maybe fatigue is the trigger later in the day, then the solution starts earlier. Structure the daytime with predictable, meaningful activities. Things that are engaging but not frustrating. Folding laundry, sorting objects, a gentle walk.
So if Ms. L needs sensory input, we provide positive ways to get that earlier in the day so the need doesn't build up into frantic pacing by 4 p.m. It's like
Yeah.
inoculating her against it.
That's a good way to think about it. Preemptive. If you find yourself thinking, wow, where did all this energy come from suddenly? The answer might be that the structure earlier was too low.
Okay, makes sense. Step 2 then zeroes in on that really critical window, maybe 4:000 p.m. to 7:00.
Yeah.
The physical environment itself needs to signal calm. And you mentioned lighting earlier as a common mistake area.
Yes, this is huge, and often one of the easiest things to adjust with immediate impact. Managing the lighting transition proactively. As natural light fades, the brain loses important visual cues. Shadows can look distorted, even frightening. It messes with the circadian rhythm, bumps up anxiety.
So just flipping on the bright overhead kitchen light isn't the answer.
Usually not. Overhead lights often create harsh glare and deep, confusing shadows. What the sources strongly recommend is replacing that fading daylight immediately with warm, consistent lamplight. Think table lamps, floor lamps, at about eye level.
Warm light, like amber tones.
Exactly. That warm light helps signal to the brain that it's time to wind down. It supports natural melatonin. It's the opposite of that alerting blue light you get from many overheads or screens.
That's super specific, very actionable.
Okay.
And the other part of step 2 was creating a landing zone.
Yeah, a landing zone. This is about having a designated, really familiar, comforting spot. It could be a specific armchair, maybe with a favorite soft blanket or pillow always there. It needs to be visible, accessible, inviting. Put yourself in Mizael's shoes. You're tired, maybe confused, the world feels a bit off. Seeing that constant safe spot acts as a nonverbal cue. Safety. Rest.
Ah, I see. So instead of feeling lost and starting to pace towards the door trying to go home, there's this familiar, safe alternative right there. It gives her somewhere to gravitate towards.
Exactly, a place to land safely instead of escalating. And that leads smoothly into step 3, which is all about reinforcing calm engagement. This focuses on the caregiver's response, of the consequence in that ABC model, because how we react teaches the person what works.
Right. And this feels like where things often go sideways. You're tired too, it's late, someone's getting agitated. The instinct might be to reason or even raise your voice, sit down, stop that. Why is trying to reason with them in that moment usually futile?
It's a really important question. Reasoning fails because the very parts of the brain needed for logic, for understanding consequences, for recalling facts, those are the pathways that are compromised or just offline during peak distress, especially with cognitive decline. When Mrs. L is panicking about needing to find her mother, she's running on pure emotion, maybe primal fear. Logic isn't accessible.
So trying to argue the facts, your mother isn't here, you don't need to pack, just adds noise.
Worse than noise, it actually adds intensity. Rapid questions, a raised voice, that sense of urgency from the caregiver. It unintentionally reinforces the panic. All the focus and energy goes to the agitated state.
Okay, so what does work? You mentioned differential reinforcement.
Yes. The idea is you respond differently depending on the behavior. You want to redirect gently, using calm, simple language. Focus on comfort, not correction. If she's packing the bag, don't argue about the bag. Acknowledge the feeling, maybe redirect the action. It sounds like you're feeling unsettled. How about we sit here with your favorite music? Or here's that soft sweater you like. Let's put it on.
So you validate the underlying emotion, the distress, the need, but redirect the behavior towards something calming. And crucially, you give attention and comfort when they engage with the calm thing, not when they're escalating.
Exactly. You reward the moment of calm, not the agitation. Over time, the person starts to learn. They learn that seeking that calm thing, the music, the blanket, the quiet company, is a more effective way to get their need for comfort met than escalating the behavior.
It's like teaching a new, calmer pathway to getting needs met.
Okay.
But this whole system, identifying functions, finding the right interventions, it really hinges on careful observation, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Which brings us to that scientist's approach you mentioned, charting things.
Absolutely. You can't just rely on memory, especially when you're stressed. Data collection, tracking each episode, is key to making this work reliably, using that AFC model.
Okay, let's spell that out. If someone's going to chart an episode of agitation, what are the 3 essential data points they need to capture?
Right. 3 things. First, A is for antecedent. What happened in the 15 minutes before the agitation started? Get specific. Did the TV show change? Did a visitor arrive or leave? Did the lights change? Did an activity end abruptly?
Okay, the trigger. Got it. Second.
Second, F is for function. What do you think the person was trying to achieve or communicate with the behavior? Were they trying to escape something, noise, glare, confusion, or were they seeking something, movement, attention, comfort, sensory input?
Escape or seek, okay? And third.
Third, C is for consequence. What specific thing actually helped calm them down the fastest this time? Was it wrapping them in a weighted blanket, playing a particular song, offering a warm drink, going for a quiet walk? Be specific about what worked.
And that C, the thing that works, that's pure gold, isn't it? Because that successful consequence then informs your strategy for next time. It becomes your go-to reinforcer, maybe even part of your preventative plan.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
The system becomes self-correcting, self-improving. You're building an evidence-based care plan tailored specifically to that individual. You stop just reacting to symptoms and start addressing the actual drivers of the behavior. And the research really backs this up. Behavioral and environmental strategies are the most effective first line. They often significantly reduce agitation without needing sedatives.
That's such a hopeful message. It really empowers caregivers, doesn't it? You're not just managing decline, you're an environmental engineer actively creating predictability and peace.
It truly is empowering. But okay, let's say someone's listening and they're facing agitation right now. They feel overwhelmed. What's the one immediate takeaway, the mantra they need?
I think the most critical piece of advice, that immediate action, is redirect, don't reason. Forget arguing about the logic. Don't get caught up in why they think they need to pack the suitcase or find their mother. Focus instantly on comfort and offering a simple, safe alternative. Hand them the blanket, turn on the music, offer the tea, address the emotion first, get them calm. Then later, you can grab your notebook and jot down your AFC data for next time.
Redirect, don't reason. That's perfect. Provide comfort, then collect data. It gives you structure, a plan, and compassion all at once.
And that framework? Understanding behavior as communication, using AFC, it's going to be really vital for our next deep dive too. We're planning to build on this and tackle another really common and honestly incredibly draining behavior pattern, repetitive questioning, that loop of worry that can just consume everyone's energy.
Oh, yes. Applying the same kind of functional analysis to break that cycle. Looking forward to it.
It feels like there's a path forward with these tools. Until then, thanks for this deep dive.